Director of Lincoln Transportation and Utilities. Joining me today are a variety of city and county departments, including County Engineer Pam Dingman, Lincoln Police Department Captain Danny Wrighton, Lincoln Fire and Rescue Chief Dave Engler, Lancaster County Sheriff Terry Wagner, and Emergency Management Jim Dilsaver. You'll hear from each of them soon, but first, we are almost 36 hours into the second biggest snowstorm since 1965. Lincoln saw up to 14.5 inches of snow, and the month of January has made a new record in being the snowiest January with 18 total inches. I'm excited to say our Lincoln Transportation and Utilities snow fighters and contractors have made good progress overnight and this morning as the storm began to slow. More than 100 city and contract team members have completed their first round of arterial plowing. Crews are now on their second round of arterial plowing and are beginning to apply de-icer material to arterial streets to help loosen the snow and ice on the roads. The unplowed residential streets are snow-covered and hazardous. Our residential snow plowing continues, and with the amount of snow that fell, it will require multiple passes throughout the storm and after the storm to clear those roads. The arterial streets are still snow and ice packed with slick spots, so we ask everyone to drive carefully. At 8 a.m. this morning, the parking ban that bans parking on both sides of arterial streets, including emergency snow routes, bus and school routes, ended. However, a residential parking ban is still in effect for the odd number sides of the streets. So we ask that you please continue to keep your vehicles off the odd numbered side of the residential streets. This gives our plows an opportunity to clear snow from as much of the street as possible. This storm season, Lincoln Transportation and Utilities implemented a new process that we hope is simpler and more efficient. When a residential parking ban is required, parking is banned on only one side of the street. The sides of the street will not switch like they have in previous years. During residential bans, parking on odd number sides of the street will be banned in odd numbered years, such as 2021. Parking on even numbered sides of the streets will be banned in even number of years. This change was recommended by our Residents' Winter Operations Task Force, a local resident group who made recommendations to improve winter storm responses in Lincoln. Our city and contractor crews will continue to plow arterial and residential streets today and will bring you updates regularly. Also, our StarTran transit system has returned to normal hours of operation today. Please expect some delays due to the storm. Both city and county teams provide many important services during storms like these to keep our residents safe. I'd like to now turn the update over to County Engineer Pam Dingman, who will offer a winter operations update for Lancaster County. Pam?
Good morning. It's a great day to be county engineer. I want to start this morning by thanking the City of Lincoln. Many people may not be aware, but Lancaster County has had a long partnership with the City of Lincoln, in particular for the roads that are along the perimeter of the City of Lincoln. We do trade about 20 miles of jurisdiction amongst ourselves in order to remove snow in the most efficient manner. In addition, this year, Lancaster County began purchasing brine from the City of Lincoln, and we are excited to say that partnership is helping us better remove snow in the county. So we do expect in the county to have paved roads, major arterials open by noon today. We were a little sad this morning. We weren't able to implement our snow plan the way that we thought we could. There was so much snow on our paved roads that we had to put our motor graders on our paved roads to push snow off the shoulders. So we're a little slower getting to the gravel today than I'd hoped. We will be about 25% clear by noon, and we expect to be 50% clear by the end of the day on the gravel. But we do expect it to take to the end of the day tomorrow to get all of the gravel roads open. At noon, we will start with contractors removing snow in the subdivisions and hope to add additional staff this afternoon to that. We also expect that subdivisions may not be clear until the end of the day tomorrow. We did take the steps in actually having people take their motor graders home with them last night in the rural areas of the county. So if you live in some of our smaller cities and villages, you may have saw an odd motor grader parked in front of someone's house or in their driveway. That did help us start sooner this morning. That was really an unprecedented decision by our office. Currently, we're happy to say in Lancaster County that unlike the event of 2019, our continued focus on resiliency has it at this point in the storm with no breakdowns. And so that's much different than we've been in the past, and I think that's important to keep everybody on the road so that in this event, we can get these roads back open. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Lincoln Police Department has been working night and day to respond to emergency calls and assist stranded drivers where they can. Captain Wrighton will talk more about their efforts, and I will turn it over to Captain Wrighton.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to express appreciation to the employees of Lincoln Transportation Utilities for all the hard work that they're doing under very trying conditions with this nearly unprecedented storm. Lincoln Police Department operations continue as normal. We are still responding to all calls for service. Responses may be a little bit slower than what the norm has been, just due to the amount of snow in the residential areas. We have given officers the opportunity to team up with another officer, so there may be 2 officers in a cruiser to respond. That allows them to have an immediate available backup if they need one, rather than waiting for a response across some roads that are still somewhat difficult to travel. Our Lincoln Emergency Communication Center saw, as expected, a heightened call volume yesterday, taking about 600 more calls than the same day a week ago. So Monday saw about 1,600 total calls for service, both on 911 and non-emergency, compared to last Monday when they took 1,050. Traffic accidents have remained pretty much within the norm, and we thank the motoring public for exercising due regard, staying home when they can, and traveling only when needed. We completed about 22 accident reports yesterday, which is a little bit below the daily normal. And so far today, we've responded to 3 crashes since midnight. Again, thanks to LTU for all the hard work that they're doing, and thanks to everybody who's paying attention to the conditions.
Thank you, Captain Wrighton, and thank you to the Lincoln Police Department for all of their work and help. I'd like to turn it over to Acting Fire Chief David Engler, who now has an update for fire and rescue and the good work that their team has been doing throughout this storm. Dave.
Thank you, Liz. And we here at Lincoln Fire and Rescue would like to thank LTU for their efforts in keeping the roads as clear as possible and assisting our emergency response crews in getting to the calls. They did a great job of clearing the way in a number of cases and even helping us when some of our apparatus got stuck en route. As the weather forecast had indicated the potential for this volume of snow, we were proactive in staffing additional medic units as we knew there was going to be the potential for slower response times and just a higher call volume in general. We also hired personnel back to run our snow plows to keep the approaches to our stations clear and assist in plowing snow on responses to get our emergency vehicles through the neighborhoods and to the calls in an efficient manner. All of our emergency apparatus are equipped with chains, shovels, and ice melt to aid in the response in these situations, but just the volume of snow did have an effect and slowed some of the response. We ended up with a busy day. Our typical call volume is around 75 emergency calls per day, and yesterday we responded to 88. So it was a little higher than average, and as you can imagine, the weather did have an impact on response times. We had some of our apparatus get stuck throughout the shift, and some were actually blocked by cars that were stuck en route to the calls, so that did slow some of the responses. These conditions can be dangerous for our responders, and I'm happy to report that our personnel, we only had one person sustain a minor injury, so that's very positive, and it didn't require medical treatment. And then we had no damage to any of our apparatus or any of our equipment, so that's also very positive. I'd like to remind everyone that, with the snow and everything still out there, that we have a lot of slip, trip, and fall hazards. As you're out, the roads or the streets and sidewalks can be icy, and then as you enter a building, it's wet. So be very careful with your footing, and hopefully we can avoid some of those additional calls for service. And then don't overexert yourself when shoveling the snow, because that can be very dangerous, and we do see a higher incidence of cardiac arrests with that. And then lastly, remember to keep your hydrants clear for us if we have any emergency responses. It helps greatly that we have that hydrant clear and we're able to attach the hose and get the water so we can put water on our fires. So I appreciate everyone in the community coming together to help out, and certainly LTU, and that's it for Lincoln Fire.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you for those reminders that we often forget. I'd like to turn it over now to Lancaster County Sheriff Wagner, who will update us on what they're focusing on throughout the storm. Sheriff?
Thank you, Liz. I appreciate the opportunity. As you can imagine, the county weather conditions are a bit different than the city. The wind tends to blow unabated in the county, and so whiteouts, drifting, and those kinds of conditions are pretty prevalent. Of course, we had a higher volume of cars in the ditch yesterday, and so thankfully, when cars slide off in the ditch, they don't hit other cars, and kept busy with that. But on-ramps to the interstate, Highway 77 and Highway 33, those were all areas of difficulty for motorists, and so I appreciate everybody staying home if they could. I said if there's anything good that came out of COVID, it was the ability for employers to have their employees work from home, and so yesterday was a good example of a good day to work from home if you could. And of course, the deputies are still out there responding to emergency calls. Keep in mind that on some of those gravel roads that haven't been plowed, it may be more difficult for us to get to you. If you're plowing your driveway, don't put the snow on the roadway or in the county right-of-way. Try to get it off to the side of your driveway, and make sure that the deputies can get to your home if you have an issue. So I really appreciate everybody using good common sense driving yesterday and today. It has cut down greatly the number of crashes that we've had and cars in the ditch. So thank you for everybody's diligence, and we'll just keep working, and if you need assistance, we'll be there to help you.
Thank you, Sheriff. And now I'll turn it over to Emergency Management, Jim David Saber. And I apologize, Jim, I think I misspoke when I stated your last name, but here to update us now.
Yes. Good morning. Thank you. I'd like to echo what Sheriff Wagner and the others have said as far as extending our thanks for the cooperative working relationship that we have among our county and city departments to address issues like this. In a situation like this, emergency management takes the lead when it comes to monitoring the weather. Lincoln and Lancaster County currently are not under any winter advisories or warnings, but be mindful of the other conditions out there. We anticipate high temperatures in the teens and overnight low temperatures near zero with dangerous wind chills below zero. So again, the recommendation to avoid all non-essential travel is in place. What that does for our county and city agencies and other crews out there clearing the roadways, it gives them an opportunity to do so. So as I said, it may be a little bit uncomfortable to shelter in place for another day or two, but I would discourage any non-essential travel again to give those city and county crews an opportunity to clear the roadway. As far as the extended forecast goes, we do anticipate some sunshine and a little bit warmer temperatures towards the end of the week, and we may receive additional snowfall over the weekend. So as always, I encourage people to monitor the weather conditions and plan accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Before we go today, I want to thank all of our city and county departments, teammates, and contractors for their hard work and service throughout the storm. We are now open for questions that you might have from the city and county officials. I do also have our street operations manager, Tim Byrne, available as well for any of the details that you might want as well. All right. Bailey?
Yes. Good morning. This is Bailey Bishop with 1011. I am just wondering, we've seen a lot of people asking why, their street hasn't been plowed yet. Just kind of what is the prioritization for when streets are being plowed? And just why is it taking time to get everywhere?
Well, I'll actually turn it over to Tim so he can give you kind of the details on that. But obviously with this much snow, it does take us time to get out to all of those streets. They are out there working 24/7 for the next few days, and it will take a few days to get everything cleared. But I'll turn it over to Tim and he can give you more details on that.
Hi, Bailey. Yes, as Liz mentioned, our forces have been out in full force since midnight Sunday night as the weather was moving in. Residential streets we have the city broke up into 69 sub-districts, so we block the neighborhoods off into geographic areas that get assigned to the contractors, and they just systematically move their way across the community. With this storm, snowfall didn't stop till about 5 a.m. this morning, and with the hourly accumulations we were receiving yesterday, it meant that as they were plowing those areas, while they were removing some depth off the roadway, snow quickly built back up behind the plows. The same struggle every plow in the state had yesterday. So today about 5 a.m. is approximately our 0 hour for us to start getting positive traction and get ahead of the event. So anything after that time, we will have much better success in getting the streets plowed clear, get them opened and to the curb without worrying about accumulation coming back on them.
Tim Riley with the Journal-Star. Obviously, this is second biggest snowfall on record. Where does the city put all of that snow? And what complications have there been with the vehicles that have gotten stuck and in the plowing efforts?
Riley, snow storage can be a problem in an urban environment, especially in our business districts like downtown, for example. We only have so much real estate left to stockpile the snow when we push it off of the street. So with an event of this size, we are going to be moving into complete removal operations Wednesday night into Thursday morning. That will take us probably 4 nights worth of work to get accomplished. The city has a plan for this. We have a long history of removing snow in these areas. So we've developed what we call snow dumps across the city. That is where we will take that snow to and stockpile it and let spring take care of it.
I know yesterday, this is Bailey again. I know yesterday the city had more than 100 crews out. Is that number still out? And are they all out at the same time, or how does that work?
Good question, Bailey. Yes, we still have more than 100 units out there. We've been averaging anywhere from 100 to 125 units, just depending on as city staff and contractors come on and off shift. Like anything else with that many pieces of machinery rolling, we have experienced some breakdowns. Some of those have been minor, been able to get put back into service. We've had a handful of serious breakdowns that the machinery has had to been removed from service. But we are doing a great job with our city staff and our contractors of maintaining those numbers in force, and they will stay on duty throughout the end of this event. Our residential contractors continue to plug away in the residential areas. And later today, probably sometime after lunch, when our arterial contractors get finished up on those arterial streets, we're going to be deploying them into the residential areas as well. So we're going to keep pushing along with the full force of all the units throughout this event.
Tim Riley again with the Journal Star. What will it take for the city to have streets to a condition that schools might be able to, decide to be open again? I mean, imagine a lot of that rests on how much you can get done with the residential work.
Yes, residential progress will be slow with this volume of snow. Plowing of residential streets is our slowest progress, even under good conditions, just because of the obstacles you have, the amount of intersections you have in those areas. So right now we are anticipating, hopefully by midnight tomorrow night, we will be wrapped up with the residential streets. So we're planning about a 24 to 36 hour window to get through all of the residential streets with all of the resources that we'll be able to deploy with those.
This is Bailey with 1011 again. What's the breakdown? How many of those crews are city crews? How many are contractors?
Presently, we're running about 50-50 on that. Partnership with our local contractors is a critical piece of our service that we provide to the city.
Tim, how's the compliance been with the parking ban? And has the city needed to sort of tow the vehicles that are in violation, or has that worked?
I haven't received a lot of feedback from the operators on the parking ban. A lot of them, they just sort of get used to getting around the cars. We do report vehicles that are illegally parked, but I'd have to defer to LPD on if they've received a lot of those calls and how any of that process is going.
We are getting some complaints of non-compliance and sending officers out to deal with those. Probably as much of a problem with that are the vehicles that are getting stuck in intersections and whatnot, and those create as much, if not a bigger hazard for the LTU crews to be able to clear the streets. It's a little bit easier for them to get around a car at the side of the road than it is for a car that's stalled out in the middle of the intersection. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Now, that was a large part of our calls for service yesterday, was responding to vehicles that were stuck in the roadways.
Danny, Kevin, Ryan, just at this point too, if, since some of the conditions on side streets are still a little bit difficult, stranded or stuck drivers, should they call non-emergency for assistance, or what kind of guidance are you guys looking?
Yeah,
to give?
we're still responding out to vehicles that are stuck in the intersections and realizing that, we're going to have to call for tows to come and get those out. And tow responses as well are as equally as impacted as anybody else in order to be able to get those vehicles off the roadway.
Question for Director Elliott or for Tim Byrne?
Hi, Riley.
Hi, Liz. Obviously, snowiest January, and already, kind of one of the snowiest snow seasons in probably the last 11 years, I think, according to the Weather Service. What, what are you anticipating this might do to the snow operations budget? You probably didn't plan for 14 and a half, but.
No, but this is one good example of how difficult it really is to predict the snows and how inconsistent winters are here in Nebraska, which also creates its own challenges. We do have currently budgeted about $4 million for the entire year. The first major snowstorm, we're estimating about $1 million there. I expect this would probably come in over that given the amount of snow. However, it'll be some time before we actually have the final numbers on that. Once we get all the invoices in from all of the contractors, we tally our own information, we'll have a better idea in the next couple weeks. But it definitely is going to take a hit to our our budget.
Liz, with StarTran having to make that kind of unprecedented or very rare move to stop service, kind of what became the difference yesterday, and were I guess were the buses pretty full or comparatively in the pandemic?
During the pandemic, our ridership has been reduced about 50%. So we're averaging about 6,000 riders a day while school is in. When school's out, it's closer to 5,000. Yesterday around noon, we had about 9 or 10 of our 18 buses stuck and at the various bus stops along the way. At that point, and given the forecast for increasing snow, and we decided for the safety of our operators and our passengers at that time, it was best to halt our services for the day early and try and get everybody home that we could. It did help that schools were closed, Kawasaki closed around noon, and other large employers. So thankfully our ridership yesterday was fairly low and hopefully had a minimal impact, although we do know it's difficult if you do rely on the bus system to get home, so we do apologize for that. But in the interest of everyone's safety, we thought it was best to call it a day at 3:30.
Just one more question. At this point, if people are on a residential area that hasn't been attached, or if they come upon an area where there's dangerous driving conditions, is it too early for them to report it on Uplink, or should they wait and give crews another day or so before they make any reports?
If they could give the crews another 24 hours, that would be extremely helpful, because we do, as Tim had mentioned, we do have crews out and we do intend to reinforce them once the arterials are taken care of. So hopefully in the next 24 hours, the residential streets will be taken care of. All right. Thank you all. Yeah.
This is Andrew Ozaki from Channel 7 News out of Omaha. I had a couple of questions for Pam Dingman.
Yes, absolutely.
Andrew, are they hard questions?
Oh, they're going to be tough. I saved you for last year. No. Hey, how many people took you up on taking the graders home, and what was the rationale for that?
So the rationale was really simple, and that's that the drifting in the county was severe last night. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we reached the point where even if we were clearing the road, within 45 minutes, we had a 2 or 3 foot drift across 50% of a paved lane. In many areas in the county, and I did go out yesterday afternoon, we were seeing 2 and 3 foot high drifts. And so our concern was that where our employees live in the communities that they work in, that we would have to spend a significant amount of time this morning actually plowing to an employee to pick them up and get them into the village where their motor grader was. And so we sent home about 50% of the motor graders last night, because we do have some people that drive motor graders that live within the city of Lincoln or other communities. And so, but if you did live out in the county, you did take your motor grader home last night. We did actually have one motor grader operator who took his motor grader home in the Hallam area that did have to respond to help one of our supervisors get his truck out of the ditch last night. And so, these are really just unprecedented times. And the whole reason for having the motor graders take your equipment home was to get started earlier this morning.
Is this something that you might do, again, or does it have to be an unprecedented storm like this?
Well, it really depends on the storm. I think that when we talk about snow, everybody makes this assumption that every snow is the same. And there's a lot of science that goes into removing snow, just like so many of the other things to maintaining our roads. And so what we do in the county, as well as what the city of Lincoln does, is we really look at the type of snow it is. Is it going to rain before it starts to snow? How cold is it? What is the dew point? There really is a science to it, and what we do is that we actually go to snow school, Andrew, and try to figure out the best way to approach every storm. And so we're constantly gathering the data, and then depending on what the data is, if we have another forecast 8-inch event, I may consider having the motor graders take their equipment home again.
And finally, why do you think you didn't have any breakdowns this time around? Is there any rationale? Why is it just luck?
Well, I would really rather be smart than lucky on any given day. That being said, I never want to turn down luck. So I'm going to say some of it probably is luck. Some of it is a really concentrated effort over the last 5 years to work on our fleets. And so we had a large number of our pieces of equipment, both dump trucks and motor graders, that were older than 20 years. And so when you have equipment that's that old and that's been run that hard for that duration of time, you have reliability issues. At the same time, when we're looking at a fleet of 23 motor graders that cost, approximately $200,000 to $235,000 a piece, we simply can't afford to replace them all at once. So we have been adding 2 new motor graders a year for the last 7 years. We had 1 year where we did buy 3 in order to get a more stable fleet of motor graders. In addition to that, in 2019, we actually had about 70% of our fleet of snowplows broke down during that major storm. And so since then, we've also been buying plows every year to incrementally get a more stable fleet. And the goal is not necessarily to have all shiny new equipment, although my operators will tell you that's very nice. The goal is to add resiliency to the system for days like today.
Thanks. See, those weren't that tough, were they?
I guess I may. No calculus.
All right, if there's no questions,
Actually, this is Brent with Channel 8. One quick question, not sure who would be best for, but I just wanted to ask about snow angels. Have you seen a lot of new signups or calls for help?
let's see if anyone here has the data on that right now. We don't, Brent, but we will get that to you. We will send you an email with that information once we are done here.
For people who don't know, could you just kind of explain how that process works?
The Snow Angels is an opportunity for people to volunteer to help out those who are unable to shovel their own sidewalks, driveways, that type of thing. So people can add their names to the list and help out during snowstorms just like this one. Thank you. And we'll get numbers to you, Brent.
Liz Riley with the Journal Star. It might be a question for Tim, but for people, that might be kind of questioning the wisdom of plowing when, residential streets early in a big snowstorm, what would the city be facing if residential work did not start until after the snowstorm had finished and the city could plow, the city crews could plow residential streets?
Right.
14.5 inches. Do you guys think that there would be any ability for vehicles to drive on residential streets?
Probably not, but I will turn that over to Tim and he can go through that for you, Riley.
Just the sheer depth of snowfall always makes it difficult, Riley. The more snow that is there, the harder it is to clear off. So by allowing the ability for those forces to get out there sooner helps us to at least reduce the depth that's there, so that if you need to get out of your house, or heaven forbid, one of our public safety partners needs to get to your house, there is a better chance that they can get there with the reduced snowfall that we have on those roads. Especially in those residential areas, it is a vast network of streets that are curvy, lots of intersections. The more snow you have, creating that weight on the plow of your machine, the more difficult it can be to turn around corners and be able to get those intersections cleared out well. So it's going to take us some time to get there, but just because of those other complexities, that you will find in a residential neighborhood, there's definite benefit to us to be able to at least minimize that quantity during the event. Otherwise, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at sometime after lunch today before we would primarily finish on arterial routes, school routes, and bus routes. We are going to go into those as a secondary street to help open up some increased ingress and egress from the neighborhoods. But then we would have normally been looking at sometime this evening before we would have started residential streets at all. That could have really made some very, very difficult conditions, more so than were already there for our community and our public safety partners.
I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, and with that, thank you. And we will end with going back to Brent's question on the snow angels with a little PSA and some additional information on that program. So thank you, be safe, and stay off the roads if you can for the rest of the day. Thank you.
You can be a snow angel this winter by volunteering to shovel snow for those who can't. It's a great project for families, church groups, neighborhoods, and service organizations. It's easy to sign up online at lincoln.ne.gov, keyword snow, or call 402-441-7644. Many people in Lincoln need the help, so get that warm feeling this winter by becoming a snow angel today.